Today on Stock Charts in Focus, we're hitting the second most important technical indicator of them all, relative strength. Now, of course, price comes first, but in my book, relative strength is the next most important indicator that you need to be thinking about. After all, if you want to beat the market, you got to own things that are beating the market. So on the show today, we're going to look at 4 ways that you can visualize and think about relative strength in your approach. We're going to set your benchmark, and you're going to be able to use these tools no matter what symbol you are thinking about. We're going to do it in SharpCharts. We're going to do it in ACP. So we got a lot to cover. Of course, you know what it is. It's all new. It's all here. It's Stock Charts in Focus. All right, my friends, welcome to the show, Stock Charts in Focus. Of course, our product focus show here on the channel, where we dig into the site, dive into the tools, show you around the features, and ultimately help you get more value out of stock charts. That's our mission here every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, up on the live channel, also up on our YouTube channel after that, and of course the on-demand platform at StockChartsTV.com. You've got lots of ways to watch. I'm your host for the show. My name is Grayson Roze, Vice President of Operations here at StockCharts.com. As always, wonderful to be back with you. Today's show in particular, this is something near and dear to my heart. Again, we're going to look at some of the tools that I use in my own approach to the markets, like so many other skilled technicians. Relative strength truly is, I think, one of the most important technical indicators. I would truly say the second most important technical indicator. Now, of course, you're not going to get anywhere without thinking about price. So price itself, obviously a technical indicator, and obviously the most important one. But when we think about how to actually put price to work, right? How to actually beat the market and invest successfully, we need to own things that are beating the market if we want to beat the market. Or if we're playing the short side, we need to own things that are underperforming the market if we want to underperform the market. Relative strength is our guide, though. If we think about kind of walking through a forest, price might be the path, but relative strength is the light that makes sure that path is still viable. So on the show today, we're going to look at some very, very cool relative strength tools. Now, some of these we've covered on the show in the past, but we haven't really kind of put it all together in this way before. You're going to actually get some options. You're going to pick and choose at the end of the show what you like to use. Maybe you want to use a combination of a couple of these, but you're going to see a couple of different ways to set up your charts with some of these relative strength tools. Now we're going to put 3 of them on the chart right at the top, even above the price panel. You're going to see that in SharpCharts and in ACP. Then we'll actually jump over to our chart lists, and we'll show you how the performance view can allow you to think about kind of relative strength for a group of securities that you've actually saved into a chart list. So lots to cover. It's going to be a lot of fun. Before we get started, I want to let everyone know, earlier this week we had an exclusive special, another one from Larry Williams. You can go to stockcharts.com/Larry Williams, all one word, to see that special. Larry himself has also been commenting back, so if you want to throw a comment, if you have a question, anything like that, you can actually use the chat window on the side of that page. But an amazing special from Larry, a very, very timely one as well, talking about, are we in a bull market? Are we in a bear market? What is really going on beneath the surface? He also shared his latest buy point prediction. It's a great time to hear from Larry Williams, obviously a legendary trader, an amazing technician, an incredible educator as well. So really excited to have that special out from Larry. Again, stockcharts.com/Larry Williams is where you can go to get that just for Stock Charts members. So if you're not a Stock Charts member, in addition to everything you're going to see on the show today, getting access to Larry's special is another good reason to go sign up for a free trial. Of course, you can do that by going to our homepage or visiting stockcharts.com/free trial. So without further ado, let's jump over to the site and get it going. All right, everyone. So we are absolutely going to fly today. We got a lot to cover, but all very exciting stuff. To save us a little bit of time, what I've gone ahead and done in SharpCharts and in ACP, as you'll see in the sort of back half of the show, I've set this chart up with kind of our 3 starting places all in one. So what we have here, we're going to walk through kind of what each of these panels means. And then we're actually going to take a look at the settings, show you how to create this on your own. We will also put a link to this Sharp chart and also to that ACP chart that we're going to take a look at. We'll put links to those charts in the description down below. So if you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching on our on-demand platform, we will have links. You don't have to go create this yourself, but you can. You will see how to do that. So what we have on this chart, we've got 3 different panels up above our price panel. So down here at the bottom, we've got our traditional price chart for Broadcom. In this case, we're looking at about a year and a half worth of data. But up at the top, we have 3 different ways to view relative strength. Now, if you're not familiar with what relative strength is, let's pull back for a second and talk about that. Relative strength is our way of saying, well, okay, this stock is going up, but what's the market doing, right? We can compare the strength of one security relative to another. Now, we typically like to do this with the market. We like to say, hey, is this stock outperforming the S&P 500, outperforming the Dow, outperforming VTI? That's my benchmark of choice. The Vanguard Total Index represents the total US stock market. Whatever your benchmark is, relative strength allows you to compare the performance of one security to another. So in this case, with these lines, if these lines are going up, that means that the chart on the symbol on the chart is outperforming our benchmark. Relative strength is improving. When these lines start to go down, that means we have weakening relative strength. That means that that security is underperforming our benchmark. So first up is to decide what's your benchmark. If you like the S&P 500, if you like the traditional index, $SPX, or the ETF like SPY, maybe you like something smaller like the Dow, maybe you like something bigger like, as I said, VTI. No matter what your benchmark is, you got to pick that. That's going to be first and foremost. And you want to use the same benchmark typically across a broad group of securities. Now, if you're using different types of assets, maybe you're looking at commodities at one point, and then you're looking at bonds at another point and stocks at another point, you might use different ETFs for those different asset classes. But I would say that within a specific asset class, for instance, if you're looking at stocks and ETFs that are trading US listed securities, you're probably going to want to use the same benchmark for all of those. So in my case, my benchmark for pretty much everything, again, is VTI, that Vanguard Total Index. So all of these lines, you'll see Vanguard Total Index across those. All of these different panels are comparing their performance, in this case of Broadcom, to the total market. Now, the other thing that you're going to see in just a sec is that we use ratio symbols to set up a couple of these. So a ratio symbol is taking 2 symbols, the root symbol of the chart and whatever our benchmark is going to be, separating those with a colon. So AVGO colon VTI. That's how we create a ratio symbol on StockCharts. And what a ratio symbol does on StockCharts is takes those 2 symbols that we've separated with that colon and it compares them. So it basically charts the performance of one versus the other. So that's how we can determine whether a Broadcom, in this case again, is outperforming VTI. We use a ratio symbol, and that's going to chart their performance of those 2 sort of compared against each other. So that's the background. Now, once you've had that background, you're going to go out, you're going to watch Dave Keller's show, you're going to listen to folks like Larry Williams, you're going to see John Murphy and Martin Pring and all of the contributors around StockCharts. You're going to start to pay attention to what they're saying, and you'll notice that all of them talk about relative strength. It truly is the second most important indicator after price itself. So we can look at relative strength in a number of different ways. Again, in my case, I've set VTI as my benchmark, but I can actually sort of spin that in a couple of different ways. So that's what we have up on this chart. Up at the top, we are using a traditional price indicator, and we're again using that ratio symbol. The panel down below is going to do the exact same thing, but if you pay attention to the scale over here on the right, you'll see that this is actually in percentage terms. So this relative strength line, this comparison, instead of being a true ratio, just kind of a mathematical ratio of the 2 prices compared to each other, this one's actually going to be a percentage scale. Now, this is my favorite. The blue line is my favorite approach. I like to think about things in percentage terms, because that gives me kind of a more directly comparable, apples to apples kind of comparison when I'm thinking about different securities. I can say, hey, Broadcom has outperformed the market by almost 50% over the last year and a half, whereas some other symbol ABC has only outperformed the market by 2%. So I personally like to think about things in percentage terms. You've got two different ways to do that, though, using basically the same approach. You're going to see the settings for that in just a second. In the third panel down, we've broken out those two symbols. So we have our root symbol for the chart. We're looking at the percentage performance of Broadcom. That's that green line over time. And we've actually stripped the two symbols apart. Instead of using a ratio symbol, we've put that benchmark on its own, as its own line, on the same panel as Broadcom. So what that allows us to do is, instead of seeing sort of that just that pure relative strength line that's either going up, which is in our case good, or down, which is in our case bad, we can actually see the sort of the delta between those performances right there on the chart. You can see how different the performance of Broadcom versus the total market has been. Over the last year and a half, we can see that Broadcom is up over 30%, almost 31%, while the market over that period is down, actually. There's our zero line. So the market is down 12.5%. So this is just kind of another way to visualize relative strength on your charts, actually separating those two securities. Again, you're going to have what you're looking at, and you're going to have your benchmark. We can put those together into a ratio symbol. That's what these top two panels do. Or we can break them apart and sort of put them on their own lines in the same panel. So let's take a look at how to set that up before we jump out to our chart list view. So down here on the SharpCharts workbench in the indicators section, we've got a couple of things. And again, we're going to give you a link directly to this chart. So you won't actually have to create this yourself, but it's important that you do see how these settings work. So our top panel, that's going to be that black line up here. Again, this is our relative strength line. We're comparing the symbol versus our benchmark, in my case, VTI. And we've just got that kind of mathematical formula approach, right? Just that number 3.23. So down here, the way that we've set that up, we've selected the price indicator from that indicators menu. And again, we've used our ratio symbol. Now there's one key trick that we need to use when we set up these ratio symbols, and that's something called $ symbol. You can see that highlighted there in blue. For all of these, we're going to use $ symbol. What that does, instead of typing in AVGO in this box and then colon VTI, by typing in $ symbol, that tells the SharpCharts workbench, that tells the charting engine, hey, whatever the main symbol on this chart is, in this case AVGO, put that right here. So for all of these, it's going to basically inject the symbol right into this ratio symbol that we are creating. So that means that if we change this to something like Apple, instead of having to go retype all those boxes, you can see that all of these lines have now actually changed to Apple because we've hard-coded in that $ symbol trick. So a very, very useful little trick. That is key for setting up these relative strength charts, using $ symbol to set those up. So again, for that top line, for that black line, we've got price as the indicator. We've got $ symbol colon VTI. We're going to separate that $ symbol from our benchmark with a colon. And we've gone ahead and positioned that above the price panel. So that's going to put that at the very top of the chart. Now I've given this a solid thick line, a black color, and I've actually set the height to be 0.5. What that's going to do is say, whatever the height of this main price panel is, set this indicator panel to be half as tall. So you can see all of these different panels, because those are 0.5 on the height value, those are half as tall as the price panel. So a little visual trick that I personally like to use, especially for my relative strength panel. So that's going to set up our traditional ratio version of that relative strength line using, again, that price indicator. Now, if we like what we've done here with the blue line, again, formulating that as a percentage instead of just as a ratio, if you like thinking in percentage terms, we're going to do the exact same thing to set up that blue line. This is our second relative strength view option. Instead of using the price indicator, though, we're going to use the price performance indicator. So from that menu, you're going to select the exact same thing, set this up in the exact same way, but you're going to choose price performance instead of price. You can see those all there together in the menu. So price performance is going to give you those percentage terms. In StockCharts speak, performance means percentage. We're going to do the exact same thing in the parameters box, $symbol : VTI. Put that above solid thick line. In this case, I made it blue so that we could discuss it a little more easily. And I've given that a height of 0.5. So those are going to be our two ways of sort of viewing relative strength in the traditional sense. Again, a relative strength line that compares that security to a benchmark. When that line is going up, you know that the security on the chart is outperforming your benchmark. When that line is going down, you know that that security is underperforming. An incredibly useful little trick to have on your charts. This is something that is at the top of every single chart I look at. Again, the second most important technical indicator. It is truly crucial. I couldn't imagine trading without relative strength analysis. So that's how you get those top two panels. Now for that third one where we get a little tricky, we're gonna get creative here with the settings. So we've got those two symbols again broken out for that third option where we're gonna actually sort of put them into their own lines but in the same panel. The way that we're gonna create this third relative strength indicator panel is by using two rows of the indicator area. So we've got a price performance indicator selected, and in the parameters box, we're just gonna type in a $symbol. So that's gonna take whatever that main symbol is and put a percentage chart in its own indicator panel. We've positioned that again above the price panel. We've given that a solid thick line, green in this case, and we've set the height to be 0.5. So we've basically done the exact same thing as the performance version of that relative strength line one panel up. But we haven't used a ratio symbol. That's the key. We've just left $symbol in there. To get VTI onto its own line, to get our benchmark onto its own line, we're then going to add another price performance indicator. We're going to put our benchmark into that box. So again, in my case, VTI, that could be whatever your benchmark is though, SPY, the Dow, the traditional S&P index, anything that you want. And we're going to position that a little bit differently. In the position menu, we're going to select behind indicator, behind IND. So when you position something behind indicator, that's going to position it directly behind the one indicator right above it. So in this case, that's going to take that benchmark price performance line, and that's going to position it behind the indicator panel that has our $symbol in it. Now we've given that a solid line and I've made it gray to make it stand out. We don't have to worry about height there because it's going to be in the same indicator panel. So when we hit update, we can see at the top of this chart, that is what's going to happen. We've put our symbol price performance line in its own panel, and then we've taken that Vanguard total market index, our benchmark, and we've put that behind the $symbol line. Now, just to give you a sense of kind of how this looks, should make sense, but if we set this to be above, if we broke that out into its own panel, here's what we have. We've got our $symbol on its own line in its own panel, and we've got our benchmark on its own line in its own panel. So by setting this to behind indicator, all that's going to do is basically pull it up and put it right into this panel along with, in this case, Apple. So I'm going to go back up here, change that to behind indicator, hit update, and there you go. You can see that we now have both of those together in the same panel. So a neat little trick that you can use here on the SharpCharts workbench. So that kind of rounds us out for relative strength directly on your charts. Now again, we're going to give you a link to this chart, so don't worry about creating it yourself. You will be able to get that. But we did go over the settings there, so you can see exactly how we put this together. Again, my favorite view of relative strength is to use that price performance version, put them together into that ratio symbol. That one line tells you whether something is outperforming or underperforming your benchmark. A lot of people like the traditional ratio version. I like to put things in percentage terms, allows me to compare across securities a little bit more easily. Now, speaking of comparing across securities, let's talk about our fourth way to view relative strength on StockCharts. For that one, we're actually going to jump out to the dashboard. and we are going to scroll down to our chart lists. We are going to use a chart list tool here to see relative strength for a group of securities. So I'm going to scroll down to a chart list. Let's do the S&P 100, make it nice and easy. We are going to open up that menu for the S&P 100. Now, I've gone ahead and saved the S&P 100 stocks into a chart list in my account. So that's first step. When you have a chart list full of stocks, whether it's a watch list, a portfolio list, all of the indexes in one, no matter what that list is, you can open up that chart list here in the SharpCharts world. You can open that up in Performance View. So we're going to hit that. We're going to open that chart list in Performance View. And I've actually cheated a little bit here because this, again, is a tool that I use regularly. So you can actually see where we are going already. This page is kind of already set up. Let's clear that out, though, and kind of start from scratch. When you open this page for the first time, we've got our chart list full of all the stocks in the S&P 100. We've opened that up in Performance View. Now again, performance is percentage in StockCharts speak. So what the Performance View for your chart list does is take all of the symbols that you've put into a chart list. Again, could be something like the S&P 100 members, could also be all the stocks you own in your portfolio, could be a watch list, could be anything. It's going to take all of those symbols and show you their price performance over all of these different time frames. 1 day, 5 day, 1 month, 3 months, 6 month, year to date, 1 year. All of those right here on the same page. Now you can sort by any of those. So by default, it might be sorted by 3 months. But if you wanted to sort by year-to-date performance, for instance, you just have to click that legend, click that table title, and that's going to sort by year-to-date. If you want to flip it, just give it another click. You can sort in reverse. So you can sort by any of these columns. There's an amazing trick that's built into this page, though, right here in the Compare To box. So this is what I deleted from the page when we first loaded it. What the Compare To box allows you to do is enter your benchmark symbol. Again, the same one that we used on the charts just a couple of minutes ago. It allows you to enter in a comparison symbol, a benchmark symbol, and the price performance table will automatically be reformatted to show you relative strength performance for everything in the list. So we can type in VTI and hit go, and you can see that all of these actually have now changed to be ratio symbols. So we've sort of done that for you on the fly. When you type in that benchmark symbol, it's going to reformat that table with all of those ratio symbols. So now we can take the S&P 100 members, all of the stocks that have been saved into this chart list, and we can think about the relative strength of this group. So again, you could do this with any list of stocks. If you've got ETFs that you're following, you save those in a chart list. If you've got your portfolio, if you've got watch lists, if you want to see how the sectors are doing or the major indexes, the industry groups, anything that you can think of, you can use this tool to actually view relative strength for that whole group of securities all at once. So again, we could think about the year-to-date performance of the S&P 100 members relative to the total market. Which ones have been the strongest performers year-to-date? Well, in this case, we can see NVIDIA, Meta, AMD, Tesla, and Salesforce, some of the top performers this year. You can see that we've sorted by that year-to-date column. If we flip it, we can see that Schwab, a big news story the last week or so, AIG, US Bancorp, MetLife, some of those financials have been the weakest performers in the S&P 100 relative to the total market, not just on an absolute basis, but relative to the total market. So this is an incredible tool for visualizing relative strength for a whole group of securities. First part of our show was kind of doing it one symbol at a time, but this also allows you to do it for a group of securities. I love using this tool, especially for your portfolio. Take all the things that you own in your portfolio, put it in a chart list, use Performance View, and you can actually see how those different positions are performing relative to a benchmark over all of these different time periods. Very, very useful. So in our last couple of minutes of the show, let's jump over to ACP. We'll take a quick look at everything over there, show you how these same tools work over in our advanced charting platform. So here we are in ACP, and I've gone ahead and cheated a little bit, set up this chart so that we are wasting no time. Now, we're not going to go through everything again. We've given you the background on relative strength. You know the importance of it. You know the purpose of these different panels, but this is just to demonstrate a couple of things. One, you can create this exact same thing in ACP. Again, we'll give you a link directly to this chart so you will get it. You don't even have to create it yourself. But the other thing is that in this case, we're using it with an ETF. You might have noticed up here, we're using XLK. We've got our same VTI benchmark, but this is just to demonstrate that you can use this for stocks, you can use this for ETFs, you can use this for any security that you want to think about. Depending on what the benchmark is, you can change your benchmark around for different asset classes, different types of securities, but you can use relative strength analysis for any security on the site. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing. You can even use it for something like Bitcoin. If you want to see how Bitcoin is doing relative to the S&P 500, you can do it. Just create one of those ratio symbols. So we've got our chart here in ACP. Always love to highlight the interactive features of ACP. So in this case, we can zoom way out. We can see how XLK has performed relative to VTI over a long period of time, and then zoom back in. So we can jump straight to our 1.5-year range, for instance. We can see a nice pickup here in relative strength for XLK, both on the ratio version, on the performance version, the percentage version. And we can see that over the last year and a half, XLK has actually outperformed VTI, outperformed the total market. Still down, but not down quite as much. So the same kind of concepts apply. Again, we'll give you a link, but over here in the chart settings area, you can use a price indicator to set up that main ratio version. You can use the price performance indicator to set up that percentage version of our relative strength line. And we can do the same thing with our performance lines here to put both of those kind of broken out into their own panels. Now, the really cool thing is that ACP gives you some interactivity. So when you create these, you're actually going to add two price performance lines, one with $ symbol, as you can see right here. We've got that little input box just like SharpCharts. For the other one, you're going to type in VTI. That's going to add as a separate symbol. And then to drag it into the same panel, you don't have to set any menus or anything like that like we did in SharpCharts. In the ACP world, because there's interactivity built in here, we can actually just drag this panel and put it right into the same one. So we can actually do the same with anything around here. We can move these panels around, but those interactive features in ACP, very, very cool to highlight. Our fourth relative strength view in ACP lives down in the drawer. So at the bottom of the screen, we can hit ChartLists. We'll actually close down our sidebar here. We can open up a chart list in the ACP drawer at the bottom of the screen. We could do something like S&P 500 members, for instance, and we can navigate over to the performance tab. You can see the exact same thing. That's going to load in those performance values. We can go ahead and type in our benchmark VTI, hit go. That's going to reformat those, and it's going to recalculate all of those price performance values relative to that benchmark. So a beautiful thing here in ACP, you do have the same ability to use that relative strength tool, that performance view for your chart lists here in ACP. And again, you can sort by any of these just by clicking on the table titles. So that is going to do it for us on the show today. I want to thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Stock Charts in Focus. Remember, we are going to have those links for you down in the description below, so definitely take a look for those. You can get that Sharp chart or that ACP chart that we built on the show today by just clicking on that link that we're going to share down there. Also, don't forget StockCharts.com/Larry Williams, all one word. Look for the banners up across the top of the site if they are still there, but if you're watching this at a later date, StockCharts.com/Larry Williams. Get his latest special. Hear from Larry what he's thinking about this wild, wild market. We're in the middle of a banking crisis, but we still got a debate about bear or bull market. We got some things ripping to the upside. We got tech recovering a little bit. It is a wild time to be alive, a great time to be in markets, and an even better time to hear from people like Larry Williams that have been trading successfully for decades. So don't miss Larry's special. If you're a StockCharts member, you get it for free. If you're not, sign up for a free trial. You get access to all of these tools and great things like Larry's show. Remember, we do this show every Friday, so we'll see you next week for another edition of Stock Charts in Focus. Again, my name is Grayson Roze, Vice President of Operations here at StockCharts.com. It's been great to be with you. I'll see you again soon for another one, but until then, chart on, my friends.